And we are going to go live. Here we go. Let me just make sure it's set up on the, woohoo, we're here. Okay, yay. Hello, everybody. I'm Misha Safran. I'm streaming live into my beautiful Facebook group with over 200 and I think 84 beautiful women from all over the world of all different backgrounds, different races, different sexual orientations. I am a lesbian, Jewish, short, American woman, and I'm super excited. Those of you who are listening in the podcast, please, if you have questions, feel free to enter them into the chat and I'll try to pay attention to that. Those of you who are on Facebook Live, please feel free to ask your questions or just your response to whatever that me and my guest are sharing. I'm so excited. Okay, so everybody, you have to know this. 6 months ago, was it pre-pandemic or after?
I think it was pre.
Okay, because you were sick. You were really sick and we had to like okay, so I'm just excited to share everybody. So Rachael Herron, woo! Rachael Herron is my guest today. And Rachael is the internationally best-selling author of more than 24 books. And she also, including, let me say this, including thriller under R.H. Herron, Herron, mainstream fiction, feminist romance, memoir, and nonfiction about writing. She received her MFA in writing from Mills College, Oakland, and she teaches writing extension workshops at both UC Berkeley and Stanford. So UC Berkeley extension is where I took Rachel's class, and I was so inspired from the coaching program in combination with the publishing class that I took with Rachel that I started my podcast. And so this was like the birth. You were part of the birth of this.
I love that so much.
I know. And I told Rachel, I said, Rachel, when I got it going, I'm like, I would love it for you to interview with me or for me to be able to interview. And she's like, I would love to, but you have to have 15 episodes. And I'm like, holy shit. Okay. Yes, I can do that. I can have 15 episodes.
And do you know why I did that?
Well, I'm not sure. So please share with me, because I know there was a reason.
There's a reason in that people get excited. They do something and they ask, the person who they were excited, like learned about something from, and they're on the second episode, and then they never do a third episode, or they never do a fourth episode.
Inspired me. I knew. In fact,
I knew you would too.
I knew subconsciously that was the best gift you could have ever given me, because I love doing these. And everybody keeps saying, and my second guests were my dad and my bonus mom. And it was so beautiful. It was just, and that even like propelled me even further. So let me just tell you guys that Rachael Herron is a proud member of the NaNoWriMo Writers Board. She is a New Zealand citizen as well as an American. And I don't know, you want to explain any other qualifications that you might want to share with this group, being that it's, well, in this group on Facebook, it's all women of different backgrounds. Then it also goes into the Podbean, which is everybody and anybody. So whatever else you would love to say about yourself, I'd love for you to share.
The thing that I'm most passionate about, I think, is helping people tell their own stories. And I think that's how we really connected, because everybody deserves to tell their story, whether it's in memoir form or fiction form. And my favorite thing is coming, and some people in your group might be like this, women who have never written anything and don't think they're writers, and then are able to capture their story. So I just love sharing that. Yeah.
Well, and then you also have a Slack channel, which I ended up meeting Melissa. Oh, I don't remember her last name, but she interviewed, I got to go on her podcast. And we did like this impromptu, like 15-minute writing thing. And I was like, wow, I actually wrote a pretty cool thing. So it's just been really, and it added to, which is the topic of this, channel, is it added to my joy. So the coexistence of pain and joy. We had COVID, we had the politics. We can go into that in great length, or we cannot. A lot of people sick. The whole entire academic system shifted. Children are upset and uncomfortable. We've got people dying, and so there was all this pain. And I had already started my Authentic and Wholehearted Joy group. And I was like, oh, how do we do this? How do I talk about when they had the murders of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor? How do I talk about authentic joy? I even had one person who was going to interview that canceled because she was in so much pain.
Oh my goodness.
It took me about 3 weeks to say, I still have to do these. And that's when I started shifting from just wholehearted joy and authentic joy to the coexistence of all of it. So Thank you for being here. Very
Thank you for having such an amazing angle on your show. Honestly, I don't think that there's ever been a time where we need this more,
I
to be
agree with you.
honest.
I
Yeah.
felt called to it and I just went with my intuition and yeah, thank you for the thank you. I love it. I'm learning to receive. So thank you for the thank you.
Good. Good.
So are you ready for question number 1?
I would love to. Yes.
Okay. And again, anybody watching, anybody listening, you are also allowed and welcome. I invite you to answer the questions that I ask Rachel, that I ask any of my guests. Please put them in the comments in the Facebook. Please put them in the chat in the Podbean. And for those of you who are watching the replay, feel free to write comments below the YouTube video. Love to hear from you. So Rachel, question number 1, and I just go randomly all over the place. My guests never know what I'm going to ask them. So
I love that.
did you grow up with any concept of joy? And if so, tell me about it.
I love this question. I remember the first time I was confused by joy. I think I kind of have this belief that we come into this world the way we're going to be for the rest of our lives, right? And we can enhance that and make it better and stronger and bigger. But I came into the world definitely a glass half full, and my sister came into the world definitely a glass half empty, and we're still exactly the same way. But I remember one Christmas, and I couldn't have been more than 5 or 6, and we never watched TV, but they somehow managed to get a TV to show the little drummer boy, that I think it was like a cartoon, maybe something like that. And then at the very end, we weren't a religious family, but the little drummer boy gives the gifts to, I guess, the gift of playing his drum to the baby. And I started crying. And I remember being very, very confused by that. And I remember my mom putting me in her lap and wrapping her arms around me and saying, sometimes we cry when we feel joy. And I was like, well, that is just jacked up. That's the very first time I remember being overwhelmed by joy. And I really think that it is, I think my very favorite feeling in the world is equanimity. And equanimity to me includes joy. Joy is one of those things I love to feel, but I get so excited about it sometimes that like I will launch myself into a good migraine. Like I get migraines from stress, and sometimes I can be so happy I can stress myself into a migraine.
Yeah, totally understand that.
So, yeah.
Yeah. And so do you feel like then, it's interesting. I agree that some people are born with that half glass empty, half glass full connotation or notion. And do you feel though that from that, if you aren't born per se with that joy piece or the half full, do you feel like it's learned? Do you feel like it can be
Totally. And I do. And the reason I say that is that I've seen this sister learn. She really took ownership of her feelings, and she is the one now I go to for guidance in my feelings, because she learned how to handle the negative stuff, the hard stuff, with therapy and help and study. And for a long time I was an alcoholic. I'm an alcoholic in recovery, so I numbed all my feelings for many years. And she is the one I go to now where I feel like I'm crying, I'm devastated, I'm upset, and she will be the one to say, it's okay, joy will come. You get to feel this feeling. You're not doing anything wrong. So she's like this master teacher now, and she has found her own joy in that.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
beautiful. I think that we talk about, well, we know that exists. There are children who, we always say children are so resilient, right? So many of them are put through so many trials and tribulations from the very beginning, but
Yeah.
they are so resilient.
Yeah.
And it's almost as if the ones that had to go through the greatest hardship end
Yeah.
up coming out with the fullest rainbow as far as
Absolutely. Like she had to really water her tree, to make it continue to grow. And yeah, it's beautiful. I love that I have that relationship with her.
Absolutely. And then those of us who have the glass half full already, it's about negotiating and figuring out, okay, when I'm not feeling joy, what's wrong? And
Right.
maybe nothing's wrong.
Yeah. And my
Right?
sister, yeah, she really helped teach me that, because I always thought that I'm doing it wrong if I'm not happy at this very moment and I must fix myself. And she was the one who taught me it's just part of life. There's, you get to have these feelings and be where you are, and knowing that everything swings up and swings down and you're okay. It's going to come back.
Yeah, absolutely. And before I forget, congratulations on your
Oh,
sobriety.
thank you.
Very
It's
cool. I have
like
family members that have also been in AA recovery and other things, but I personally have been in several different recovery programs, Codependency Anonymous, and I'm so grateful for my journey. So grateful.
yeah.
I think that's what a lot of is what taught me to take in this pain and this joy. You know, people say
Yeah.
you can't multitask, but I think our feelings are constantly at battle with each other, you
I
know, because
love that.
feeling the
Yes.
pain, feeling the joy, and then it's like, wait a minute, is something wrong? No, it's just I'm feeling, just feeling feelings.
Just feeling feelings. I the other night, Tuesday night, it was election night, and we have my wife and I have one person in our pod, and she's our next door neighbor, and so she came over, and we were stressed out and upset that it wasn't going in a landslide to Biden the way we wanted to, but and I was sad about that, but I was also really joyful that we got to be together as this little family, and I was really able to hold the sadness and the happiness at the same time, and I think that's an advanced
That is
dance move, right?
absolutely, absolutely. And that's why I try to so one of the things that I like to talk about is like tools, like when we're feeling sad or painful, oftentimes, or when there's bad things going on in the world,
Mhm.
oftentimes we feel a sense of guilt or shame for feeling happy or joyful.
Yes.
So I'm curious if you have any tools to help you feel the joy when there's a lot of yucky stuff going on, or when you're feeling really hyper. How do you kind of not hyper, but really like sometimes people feel joy. Sometimes joy is scary for people.
Mhm.
They feel like when's the shoe going to drop?
Yeah.
So they can't
Yeah.
fully enjoy the joy.
Yeah.
So anything you
Yeah.
want to talk about around that? If you have tools or you have thoughts or ideas of what you do to help keep yourself in balance. Oh,
My
wait, I guess I should ask, are you in balance? No, I'm just
I
kidding.
you
Are
know,
you
I
exhausted?
kind of I almost don't believe in balance. I do believe in swings. I
Absolutely.
always want to have the perfect balanced life, and I don't. I have, really busy days, and then I have a really relaxed day, and I wish I could have a little bit of both. But my tool that I use for all of those things, for everything, is writing. And it doesn't matter if you're a writer or not. For me, it seems like until I have a pen of some sort or a pencil in my hand, I don't know what I think. And when I write something down on the page or, scribble it in my iPad or whatever, then it becomes real and I get to think about it. And there's this Susan Sontag quote that I love so much. She says, my writing is smarter than I am because I can revise it. And what that makes me think of is when we write something down, we can then reread it and we learn from it. So we're constantly learning when we're writing from what we've just written, and we get to think a little bit deeper, write another sentence, go a little bit deeper into that. And so writing is my tool to either bring me up or, stabilize me or help me balance all the different kinds of emotions. Especially, I think it really is tricky to have joy right now. And like you said, not feel guilty for it. I have had a wonderful year, and that is not that is not at what everybody has felt, but nothing really changed in my life. I'm still a stay-at-home full-time writer. The only thing that's changed is now my wife works at home, and I love that. I love seeing her for lunch. We're very, we don't go out. California is still very much on lockdown, and it's turned out that I'm such a homebody, and I love being at home, and I loved making my flower garden in spring and watching that grow. So allowing myself to feel that joy and not be bothered with the guilt is something that I have to write about.
Mhm, mhm.
It is okay for me to feel okay, even though the world is falling apart. And even though I must act in the world and I show up personally at protests and help with the resistance safely,
Mhm.
but I still get to have joy about what's happening in my life, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that I've been talking about lately, well, I've got two things to say about all that. So with the writing, my clients that I work with who are lesbian, bisexual, queer, trans identified women, we part of their practice, and even my students that I work with, part of the practice is to write daily gratitude and affirmations, daily
Yes.
gratitude and positive affirmations. And I really encourage them to write it because I feel like it's super important to not only go from head, heart to pen and paper, but then to see it again and have it come back to head, heart. You know, and so what you're saying is absolutely something that I've used. I've done journaling, I've done songwriting, I've done poetry, you know, and clearly we took this class. I took your class because I have 2 books that I started that I haven't finished yet. But I do believe that the writing helps kind of reorganize and
Yeah.
balance out the feelings that are inside of us so that we can kind of not compartmentalize, but really kind of bring life to them and then
Understand them. Yeah.
understand them. And then maybe some of them will diffuse a little bit.
And they do. When we have the bravery to look at them on the page, they lose a lot of their fear and their power, their power to place us in fear when we're able to put it on the page. That's how I learned I was an alcoholic. Like I spent a year writing how I couldn't be an alcoholic. Here's all the ways, you know, I'm not at the bottom, I haven't lost anything, etc. And then one day I wrote, I'm an alcoholic. And I went, oh no, you're right.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, you know, and that just
That's
came out of
really
the pen.
powerful.
It
Wow.
is really powerful. And I also, you know, considered most people who are not alcoholics don't write every day for a year about how they're probably not one. You know, there was a big clue there.
Let's ask, hey, everybody, do you write about the fact that you're not addicted to something? No, I'm just kidding.
Daily
Daily?
worrying about it. Yeah.
Let's think about that. Are you feeling
But
difficult right now? No,
if I hadn't been writing, if I hadn't been doing the morning pages like a la Julia Cameron,
oh, I
it would
love
have,
her book.
yeah, it would have, who knows how long it would have taken for me to actually admit that out loud.
Yeah. Wow.
So,
How beautiful. So I know writing is a passion of yours and it gives you
yes.
tremendous joy. So talk more about that if you're willing to. And then also what else? What else creates joy for you?
Oh God, it's so much, so much. But yes, writing is my passion, my joy, and you'll like to hear this. Um, in grad school, I was told very clearly, in no uncertain terms, that I was not a poet, that I was a fiction writer. And in my poetry classes, they're like, "You are too narrative. You can't. Just don't even try." And I listened. And my job, you know, I also teach students writing, and my job is to encourage them and to break these old narratives that they have in their mind that they're not a good writer, that they can't do this. And I had never questioned that poetry belief. So I took a poetry class for the very first time. I'm 48 years old, first time since grad school. This last month,
Woo!
it was a
Yay!
month-long poetry class. It has given me so much joy.
Mm,
I cannot believe that I let poetry go for, you know, 25 years of my life. And I'm so overjoyed to have it back because it just feels playful. It's just plain. A lot of my writing is, you know, for monetary gain. It's how I make my living.
mhm.
And I also love it and get joy from it. But poetry, I'm not going to make a dime on that ever. I just
Oh,
play.
never say
I mean, we'll never say never. That's
never.
true. That's true. But just having it as this game and this joyful way of expressing feelings and thoughts and memories has been so, so, so wonderful. And the other thing I get probably like writing is here, it's at the top, right? But a skosh below it, just a skosh below it is being able to help other writers find their voices. It is
Yeah, and everybody,
the
Rachel
joy
is
of my
a
life.
phenomenal teacher. I mean, that was a long day, and yet it
Yeah.
wasn't a long day. Like I felt so inspired and encouraged and motivated, and I felt joyful. I mean, I think you even helped me figure out my domain name and all that. And
I think so. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know where it is now, but I mean, I know what it is. I just don't know
Yes.
what platform I bought it on. But I was so inspired to start doing. Yeah, I mean, I can vouch for the fact that your joy was totally seen, and everybody, she was sick, like really
I
sick.
had a fever. I
We're
remember I
all
was like
worried about her.
sweating.
Yeah, and yet you still taught this most amazing, beautiful, compassionate, loving class.
It's because I believe in the joy, sharing that joy and never, ever tearing down a writer. There's never a reason to tear down a writer, ever, 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 ever. Everyone is doing beautiful work that only they can do. And anybody who tries to stop that is, you know, I will push them out of the way to
Yeah.
get these writers to do their work.
As a
So,
freshman in college, so first of all, I'll go backwards a little bit. I've never had good handwriting, and I still don't have great handwriting. But as a freshman in college, I was required to take writing 121 and writing 122.
mhm.
My 121 teacher was not a nice man.
Oh no.
And every paper I turned in, he gave me like a C minus. I even got a D. And I'm like, what's wrong with these papers? He said, you're just not a good writer. Don't expect to get anything over a C or a B in any future English classes.
Oh my
And
God.
ironically, he ended up giving me a B just to apparently appease me. And the next class I took was one the wonderful, delightful man. And he was just so sweet. He's like, your ideas are beautiful. Let's just organize them a little bit. And I just, he just gave me so much strength and courage that actually I prefer to be a speaker than a writer. But because I felt so depleted from that one class, I didn't even want to speak anymore. And with the second class, I felt so lifted. And I'm a pretty damn articulate speaker. And so I feel like that's because I was able to regain that strength in my writing.
And you were lucky, though, to have that follow up and that teacher, because so many people have that given to them in high school or college and they never get over it. Look, I am a professional who knows what I believe, and I had allowed poetry to be taken from me. Like it just gets so deep in us. So I'm so glad that you had that experience.
Yeah, me too.
The second guy.
Everybody that decides there are these certain conventions, like even my sister, she attended like a music conference and they had all these conventions like, no, this is wrong, wrong, wrong. Well, we ended up having a band and produced a CD and everybody loves our music. Like, what the heck, And she's a great songwriter. She's a terrific songwriter, very eloquent and lyrical and just, and it's amazing what some people will say, no, this doesn't work. And you know what? Fuck you.
Exactly. That is the answer.
That is the answer, right?
That really, really is. My wife always says, I don't know where she got this. It might just be a phrase people say, but don't yuck my yum. If it's my yum, don't yuck it.
Oh, please ask her if I can use that.
I'm sure you can. I'm sure she got it from somebody else. Don't yuck my yum. Why do you feel the need to do that?
Don't yuck my yum. Okay, we're gonna, that is very, very awesome. I'll just take a quick break for those of you who are listening on the podcast or watching on the Facebook Live. Please say hello to us, and if you have any thoughts about what we've been saying, especially don't yuck my yum. I mean, that was just golden. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, questions for Rachel about her writing, her joy, how she got into writing, and I mean, you can tell me anything you want. And and we can go serious if you want to too, but I don't know. This is kind of a nice, just kind of, woo, let's get lighthearted.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you a little bit about NaNoWriMo, which I'm on the writer's board for. NaNoWriMo is National Novel Writing Month. Okay. And the reason I'm bringing it up is it is November. And in the month of November, people on this online lark, it's just for fun, show up to write a novel in 30 days. And I'm saying it because it is not too late. It's only November 5th. We just started. People could jump in.
25 days left.
Yes. Okay. Yes. And you just need to write 50,000 words. Everybody is on. It's just a game. It's just a game. And the reason I am so passionate about it is that it brought me more joy than anything else in my life had up to that point. I heard about it in 2006. I told my sister, who told me about it, I said, I am a serious literary writer. I would never attempt something like that. That's just silly. And then she left my house and I of course looked it up and joined because I wasn't writing. I was really, really stuck in my writing, trying to be beautiful and literary. And NaNoWriMo shook me up so much. It was the first time I'd finished a book. It turned into my first book sold to HarperCollins in a 3-book deal. It's the book that got my agent. And it's because I was able to let go of that editor's mean voice saying, you can't do this. You're not good enough. You're not allowed to do this. It was writing really fast, really quickly from your heart.
You have a link for me to provide to my
listeners? Yeah. Or actually probably just easier to Google National Novel Writing Month.
National Novel Writing Month.
Yeah, it's nanowrimo.org. Okay. But it's free. It's fun. National Novel Writing Month. Okay. And it's and they do it again in, like, if you're listening to this late, they do it again in twice in the summer and once in November. And it is one of those practices to get, if anybody's interested in writing anything, it's a practice to get out of your way and find joy. And because if you're going to write that fast, that hard, you can't edit. You can't tell yourself you suck. You just keep moving forward with this wild ride of a story that you create. So that's kind of how I got on. Literally, that's how I got published.
Yeah. And is it just like the idea is writing novels, or do people do songs and other
people do songs, people do memoirs? They're called Nano Rebels. Oh, the idea is novel, but rebels are accepted. Rebels are welcomed. It's, it's really that creativity within constraints. You give something a box and say, I'm going to do this in 1 month or this in a week, and then go hard at it. It's so fun.
Wow. Yeah. All right. So we only have 5 minutes left. So there are 2 things I want to do. One, I want to tell you about something, see what your reaction is. And then I want you to share with people how they can find your books.
Okay.
All right. So the first thing is I wrote a song called There Ain't No Bad Day for Me. And the reason I did that was, and people know I have fibromyalgia. I've dealt with chronic pain for about 7 years now, maybe 8 anyways. And I realized that I do have that glass full overflowing a lot of times.
Yeah.
And so even when I was in my deepest days of pain, physical pain, bed rest, whatever, if something made me smile, I realized if somebody were to ask me the question, how are you today? Or how's your day going? I would not be able to say it's a bad day because there was a glimmer of joy or hope or whatever.
Yeah.
And so that song came about for that reason. So I'm curious how you feel about that philosophy.
I love it. That is really my philosophy. The only bad days I've ever had are really around losing somebody that I love. And, the day after that, but even then there will be the glimmer of, some kind of laughter as somebody makes an inappropriate joke or a memory comes up that makes everyone smile. And I really, really believe that there's, and I don't know if you'll understand about this, but there's some kind of joy about wallowing too.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's, I can
Party. It's my party and I'll cry if I want
exactly.
to.
I also struggle with chronic pain and the migraines. And there's some days where I'm like, okay, here comes a migraine. I can't do anything today, but that means for my migraines, I'm actually able to get screen time. I can look at a screen. It doesn't make me ill. So I will just watch some terrible movies on my phone in bed. And I'm like, okay, that's how I'm going to get through this.
Yeah.
So
I think, for a lot of people, it's hard to identify whether it's a choice or not.
yeah.
Like if I'm having a really bad day and nothing's coming along to give me that definition change, I have to create something.
Yeah. You have to do
Or
something.
I have to play a game, or I have to, listen to some music, or just think of something that would make me laugh, or listen to a comedy show if my head will handle it.
Yeah. And all the things you are saying are small pieces of action. And I believe that we have to walk ourselves into that. We can't just will ourselves into it. We have to do something to make that change. Beautiful.
Yay. Well, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much.
So nice to talk to you.
Everybody, I want Rachael Herron to tell you where to find her books. If you haven't already read them, I mean, I haven't read all of them. I haven't read one of them, actually. I just loved your class so much, but you should read her books because that's her livelihood. So, and she has been so gratuitous to be here with me today as a writing coach. And so I want to just promote you.
Oh, thank you. I will promote very, very quickly. Under our H. Herron, Stolen Things came out. It is you can see it over my shoulder here. It's out in paperback from Penguin. And it is about police corruption and a 911 dispatcher who answers the phone and her daughter is on the other end of the line. And she must find and save her daughter. I was a 911 dispatcher for a long time.
Oh, wow.
So, and you can find me at rachelherron.com. And if anybody is listening who's interested in writing, at rachelherron.com/write, you can sign up for my writer's email list. And that is just free encouragement.
Woo.
So
yeah. Sweet. That's so kind. I do encourage you guys to really look up Rachel because I think I already expressed it more than I needed to, but there's a lot of, you're very solid. At least,
thank you.
Present yourself as very solid.
I feel pretty solid, but coming off that way is also very good. I don't want to come off as, sometimes I'm a little bit flighty and flippy, but
no, I think that for me, it was a really wonderful introduction.
Thank you.
And I really love the fact that that's part of your niche, so to speak, is to encourage people.
Yes.
And we receive when we give.
We do. Have you ever watched Project Runway with Tim Gunn?
No, I'm not a movie person. So.
Yeah, he's just never mind. I want to be the Tim Gunn of writing someday. Just encouraging. He's so encouraging.
Man of writing. Okay.
Thank you so much, Misha. It's lovely.
Any last tool or tip you want to give people to remain in joy?
Yeah. Take one step toward your dream every day. One tiny step every day, and you'll get there.
I love that. Thank you. All right, everybody. Well, thank you. You've been listening or watching Coexistence, Joy, Pain, and Truth with Misha Safran with my guest today, Rachael Herron. And just a reminder that I am a transformational life coach. I call myself a heartstring healer. And I work with LBQT identified women to create or restore their sense of self, develop self-love, and move from isolation to developing connection with self and within a community so they can walk forward and confidently into a healthy, intimate relationship, feeling authentic and wholehearted joy on a daily basis. And yeah, everybody have a wonderful, wonderful afternoon. Bye, everybody.